Let's get a feel-good story in there for the new year as we had ourselves a game, an early game between the Boston Bruins and the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I'm honestly having a little bit of a tough time trying to think about what I want to make this video about. Like, we could talk about Ukko-Pekka Luukonen and his entire story thus far, how there was some ambiguity as to whether or not he would stick around with Buffalo. We could talk about Dylan Cozens and how he's sort of exploded onto the scene here. We can talk about Dahlin, Tuch, all this stuff going on in Buffalo. It's really great to see, but I'm going to admit, I really don't know where I want to take this commentary. The reason we're making it, though, is because for the first time in almost 2 years, the Buffalo Sabres have actually beaten the Boston Bruins. And this was a crazy game that I think everybody should have had their eyes on because it was one of the only 2 games on at the moment. There are so many games on, by the way, on this December 31st. But if you take a look at this post made on the Sabres subreddit, time to end the yellow winning streak. Dating back to December 29th, 2018, the Boston Bruins have won 17 out of 18 total games versus the Buffalo Sabres. And it doesn't take a genius to know that that's pretty bad. That's really not a record you want to have against any team, but Boston has been a really good team for a while. Buffalo has been in a rebuild sort of limbo-ish for the past few years. They've only really started to break out of that recently, and you saw in this showcase today just how they were able to get that done. And it's all off of the back of Ukko-Pekka freaking Luukonen, 23-year-old goaltender initially drafted in 2017, second-round pick by the Sabres. And there was a lot of ambiguity, as we had said earlier on. He had been a Rochester American for so long, going up and down, playing limited stints with the Buffalo Sabres. So far, though, the numbers are not all too spectacular. Not including today's game, UPL was at an .892 save percentage in 10 games played, a .340 goals against with the Buffalo Sabres. Not a super amazing stat line. However, in this game against Boston and their not number 1 goaltender, you didn't have Linus Ullmark playing, it was Jeremy Swayman instead. The Boston Bruins pretty much had themselves a field day with UPL. 40 shots against, and they only scored 3 times, so Ukko-Pekka Luukonen gets a .925 save percentage. Now that in and of itself is okay, like it's definitely a good enough number to say that he had a good game, but the reason this was crazy is because the Boston Bruins actually had a 3-2 lead for the last 8 minutes of the game. Shortly after getting the lead, though, you had yourselves a 5-on-3 power play for Boston, as JJ Peterka gets a double minor for high sticking against Brandon Carlo, and Ilya Lyubushkin gets a regular high sticking against Jake DeBrusk just 4 seconds later. Almost 2 full minutes of 5-on-3 hockey, Ukko-Pekka Luukonen kills it off, the Buffalo Sabres kill it off, and then an extra 2 minutes of 5-on-4 time after that, and the Bruins can't get by UPL. This is where things get crazy, because as the goalie goes to the bench, you have yourselves the empty net, and the Boston Bruins end up getting a rush out of that. Eventually, it's David Pastrnak who crosses over the Buffalo blue line, takes the shot, and it's saved by none other than Rasmus Dahlin. Dahlin gloves the puck down. He then takes a very long pass from his own end off the corner boards in the Boston zone. It pops out to Tuch, who's streaking in to beat the icing. He drops it for Cozens, who shoots, and it gets by Swayman. Tie game with a minute to go in the third period after an amazing save by Rasmus Dahlin. Saves from everybody out here. UPL getting the saves, Rasmus Dahlin getting the saves too, and then of course Dylan Cozens being the guy to tie things up. Now I'm not gonna lie, this goal by Swayman probably is not the best one to be letting in. It was from such a long distance, and he actually got a big piece of it before it trickled in over the line. Not the best one you want to give up, especially under the circumstances of being up 1 with a minute to go in the third. And then in the overtime period, you had yourselves another amazing play by Dylan Cozens, who steals the puck from Patrice Bergeron in the Buffalo zone. Marchand makes somewhat of a bad pass to Bergeron. He puts Bergie in a bad position because Bergie has to take it, corral it, and then get by the forechecker that was right on him. And that forechecker happened to be Dylan Cozens, who swats the puck away from Bergeron, steals it, then goes on the rush, drops it back for Tuch, who shoots, and he scores. It's a game-winning goal in overtime for Buffalo as they get their second win against Boston in, 4 years? it's a long time. And really, there were so many great things about this game. I had it on in the background while I was editing the Matvei Mishkov video, and just seeing everything go down the way that it did, it was so hyped, dude. There's so much heart and soul for the players of this Buffalo Sabres team that, for the first time in years, I feel like there's legit reason to be excited. Not to mention the fact that you had yourselves a Tage Thompson goal, a very beautiful one in this game where he drags it around everybody. He uses his long reach to just casually pot it by the goalie. He doesn't even pot it, he just kind of places the puck in the net. It's so calm and collected the way he's able to traverse around the offensive zone, waltz around with the puck on his stick. Tage Thompson is an absolute beauty, and he's one of the top players in the NHL because of it. And then, of course, Dylan Cozens continuing his hot streak with the goal and the assist at the end of the game. Tuch had 2 goals in this one as well, and 2 assists, so very good game for him. Just an absolute leader on the ice, the way he's able to take charge of things here. And I feel like for Ukko-Pekka Luukonen, a guy who had a lot of controversy, or not really controversy, that's the wrong word to use, there's a lot of negative implication there, who was the subject of a lot of discussions, I should say, instead, as to whether or not he should be the guy, if it's Eric Comrie, if it's Anderson, oh, you gotta wait till Devin Levi comes around and then everything's gonna be working itself out. But realistically, I mean, from this game alone, there's no reason to not believe in UPL anymore. Like, the guy absolutely stood on his head, made a whole bunch of saves against one of the top teams in the NHL, killed off a 5-on-3 in the dying minutes of a third period wherein his team was down, killed off an extra 2 minutes on top of that. He was incredible, and this is the staple game that goes out there and says to everybody in Buffalo that, hey, this guy is legit. He may not be this good every single game that he plays, but at least you know that this is dormant somewhere in that frame if he has an off night. He's only 23 years old, so there's a lot of time here for Ukko-Pekka Luukonen to really own this crease and serve as a benchmark before Devin Levi becomes a mainstay guy on this team. Now, I mean, Devin Levi might be coming as soon as next season, but for now, there's a lot of security there in the way that Ukko-Pekka Luukonen played this individual game, that even though there is some uncertainty with Comrie and Anderson and everybody else that you have on your team, who's going to play more, who's going to get minutes, there's hope in Buffalo. That's it, plain and simple. There's hope all around because the goaltending, I mean, long term, if Ukko-Pekka Luukonen develops and plays more like he did tonight, then you got yourselves a good tandem of him and probably Devin Levi as Craig Anderson eventually retires because that guy's like 40 million years old. And then, of course, everybody else on the team. Owen Power looked really good today. Rasmus Dahlin, of course, with the heads-up play to tie things up in the third. This is what I was talking about at the start, man. I didn't know what I wanted to make this video about. This was just really 8 minutes of talking about the Sabres game today, and I feel like this was kind of a bad video. I mean, from an entertainment standpoint, I would say, sure, it's not bad at all to acknowledge when good players are doing good things, or when guys that are kind of underdogs are doing great things as well. Very nice to see the Buffalo Sabres doing the things they're doing. We've made a ton of videos about them this year, and this one was one of the more happier ones. So talk in the comments on your thoughts if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan. What were your opinions on today's game against the Boston Bruins? What are your thoughts on them beating the Bruins for only the second time in 4 years? Thoughts on Dahlin, the heads-up play, Ukko-Pekka Luukonen making the saves, everybody doing their part, and the Sabres ending up with the victory in overtime to send off 2022. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.